So in this episode of Game of Thrones, episode 3, we basically were introduced to a slew of new characters. More specifically, Littlefinger, Lord Various, the Grand Master, and I believe King Robert's younger brother, Renly. So they're basically the council alongside Ned Stark, who's basically the one in charge, but they're more of his supporting cast since he's the king's protector and hand. So he's very outraged to find out that the council has basically allowed King Robert to bankrupt. The kingdom is basically bankrupt. King's Landing, and especially when it comes to the extravagant amount of money for the tournament, which he's pissed off about. He wants to speak to King Robert about that, but the council's kind of telling him that he really can't. King Robert, he doesn't really listen well and all that stuff. And Ned's not having. He's like, you know what? I'm not gonna proceed any further unless I speak with King Robert about this. Besides that, we get to see more of Snow and his frustration. Over at the wall, he's really being kind of a prick and a jerk, like beating down everyone that comes his way and kind of mocking him about it. I mean, mocking them about it. I believe at one point, after the sparring lessons are over, I believe two or three of them gang up on him and basically are kind of threatening to cut his throat. Tyrion comes in to save the day, and he basically kind of spills the beans on what each man, what their crimes were, or their reasoning for actually being there at the wall. Um, I believe after they leave, he basically tells Snow, listen, you gotta understand something. You're serving here for life just like them. And you have to understand they weren't as privileged as you, although you're a bastard. And it's best to keep your enemy. Well, it's best to keep them on your side instead of them being against you. So after that, Snow gets the lesson, and he's much more generous, and he's much more willing to teach them how to fight the correct way. Also, during this episode, we had a really good scene between Ned Stark and his daughter, and his daughter, Arya, and they're talking about what happened with the Butcher, Joffrey, and Sansa. She says that she actually does like Sansa, but she hates Joffrey, and that she feels guilty for the Butcher son's death. So I believe Ned Stark says also I believe she also had I believe Arya still had the sword that Snow gave her, and Ned was kind of surprised that she had it to begin with. He was wondering who gave it to her. But they have this heart to heart in which Ned's like, listen, we're in a dangerous place right now in dangerous times, and it's really important for all of us to stay together as a family. So Aya gets the message, she hugs her father, and that's that. So I believe all in the episode, King Robert is really kind of emotional. He's reflecting on his first kill and how he was saying how in a way he regrets not dying in battle, saying that what he has the kingdom, but he has a horrible marriage. All he does is basically just drink himself and have sex all the time, you know, nothing more, nothing less. And he also kind of makes fun of the Lannisters. I believe Jaime Lannister, and I believe the other Lannister is kind of his server, always give him wine. And he asks Jaime Lannister, when he killed the Mad King, what did he say? And Jaime Lannister said, everything will burn. That's exactly what he said. And that kind of startled and kind of scared King Robert. Not long after that, we have a conversation between Jaime and Ned Stark, in which you can sense the tension in the air between them. And Jaime talks about, in a sense, kind of mocking Stark about the deaths of both his father and his brother, and how the Mad King was enjoying the fact that he was watching their bodies burn. And I believe Ned Stark said, you think I should be grateful for you for being the one to kill the Mad King, but you didn't really do it as a man. You stabbed him in the back. And Jaime's like, did you prefer me to stab him in the belly? Either way, I avenged your father, even though your father and your brother kind of deserved to die in the way in which they did. And they talk about, Jaime's reputation as a great warrior and how he never seems to get touched in battle. And Ned Stark saying, essentially, that, you probably chose your opponents wisely. essentially saying that if it was me you was up against, you wouldn't be so fortunate. You would basically be dead. So he leaves off after that. So later in the episode, we have Caitlyn, basically Ned Stark's wife, meet up with Littlefinger, and she's angry because she's basically in a brothel. He asked her to meet in a brothel, and he talks about the little dagger that was left from the assassin that tried to kill her and Brian, I believe, a few episodes ago. So he says that the dagger is basically Tyrion's dagger. You know, the dwarf and the friend of Snow that I've been talking about for the past few episodes. So Lady Stark is kind of assuming, obviously, that it's him. I believe she tells her husband, and I believe her husband sort of gives her the order to capture Tyrion, I believe. So, besides that, we have this conversation with Joffrey and Queen Lannister, and Joffrey's really kind of lamenting the fact that he's not strong enough in his father's eyes, that he's not a warrior, and essentially the conversation shifts to Joffrey saying that the current problem is that all the other kingdoms think that they are equal, even though we're the top kingdom out of everyone, and that they should also be united to one army under the Lannister band. And if anyone opposes him, regardless of their little opinions or so on and so forth, they get crushed like ants, which I believe his mother agrees with. So, besides that, you guys, in the episode, I'm trying to think of everything else that happened. There was something with Daenerys and her brother. I believe Daenerys stopped the troops, not really troops, but she stopped, the group from proceeding further. She needed a break. Her brother was mad. He was saying, "How dare you stop me? You do not give me commands." And I believe one of the Kazi, I believe, sorry if I pronounced it wrong, basically has a whip, wraps it around the guy's neck, almost chokes him out until Daenerys tells him to stop. So besides that, you guys, I believe that's everything that happened in the episode. If I missed anything, it probably wasn't that important. Honestly, I believe I got the gist of what the important events that happened in this episode. But if I missed anything, write it down below in the comments. Adios.